Marcus wiped the sweat from his brow as he finished setting up the last piece of equipment in the main gym area. At 23, he'd been working at Serenity Fitness for just over a year, and his reputation as a personal trainer was growing steadily. His clients appreciated his dedication, his knowledge of anatomy and movement, and his ability to push them without being overly aggressive. "Marcus," called Sarah, the gym manager, as she approached with a clipboard in hand. "I've got some news for you." He turned, tucking a loose strand of his dark hair behind his ear. "What's up?" "Jenny, our yoga instructor, just gave her 2 weeks' notice. She's moving to Portland with her fiancé." Sarah consulted her clipboard. "I know you've got your yoga certification, and frankly, you're the only one here who does. Would you be interested in taking over the evening classes?" Marcus considered this. He'd gotten his yoga certification 2 years ago, partly out of curiosity and partly because he believed in cross-training. He'd always found yoga to be an excellent complement to strength training. It improved flexibility, balance, and mental focus. "What kind of classes are we talking about?" 3 evenings a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It's mostly intermediate level, with a good mix of vinyasa and hatha. "The clientele is—" Sarah paused, a knowing smile crossing her face. "Well, let's just say it's a very dedicated group of women. Some have been coming here for years." Marcus nodded slowly. "I'll do it. When do I start?" "Next Monday. I'll send you the roster and their experience levels. Fair warning, though, this group can be a bit particular about their instructors." Monday evening arrived faster than Marcus had expected. He'd spent the weekend reviewing yoga sequences, practicing his cues, and preparing a playlist that would complement the flow of the class. As he entered Studio B, he was immediately struck by the warm lighting and the peaceful atmosphere. Large windows looked out onto a small garden, and mirrors lined one wall. As 6 p.m. approached, women began filtering into the studio. Marcus tried to focus on his preparation, but he couldn't help noticing the diverse group assembling. There was Elena, a brunette in her early 30s who moved with the grace of someone who'd been practicing for years. Lisa, a redhead who looked to be in her mid-20s, was chatting animatedly with another woman about weekend plans. Then she walked in. Marcus's breath caught slightly as he watched the blonde woman enter the studio. She was tall, probably in her late 30s, with an elegant bearing that spoke of natural confidence. Her yoga attire was simple but expensive-looking, and her hair was pulled back in a sophisticated ponytail that highlighted her striking bone structure. "That's Victoria," whispered Elena, who had noticed his glance. "She's been coming here for 3 years. Amazing practice. She could probably teach the class herself." Victoria. The name suited her perfectly. Marcus watched as she spread out her mat with practiced efficiency, her movements economical and purposeful. There was something familiar about her face, but he couldn't quite place it. "Welcome, everyone," Marcus said, stepping to the front of the class. "I'm Marcus, and I'll be your new instructor. I know change can be difficult, but I'm excited to practice with all of you." As the class began, Marcus found his rhythm. He'd always been comfortable speaking in front of groups, and his voice naturally carried the calm, steady tone that yoga instruction required. He moved through the room, offering gentle adjustments and alternative poses for those who needed them. When he reached Victoria's mat, he paused. Her form was indeed excellent. Her warrior pose was strong and aligned, her breathing steady and controlled. "Beautiful alignment," he said quietly, and was rewarded with a small smile. "Thank you," she replied, her voice warm with just a hint of breathiness from the exertion. "You're doing wonderfully for your first class." There was something in her tone, not flirtation exactly, but a kind of gentle approval that made Marcus feel suddenly warm. He moved on to the next student, but found his attention drifting back to Victoria throughout the class. As they moved into the final relaxation pose, Marcus dimmed the lights and spoke softly about letting go of the day's tensions. In the peaceful quiet, he found himself wondering about Victoria. What she did for work, what brought her to yoga, whether she was married. He'd noticed she didn't wear a wedding ring, but that didn't necessarily mean anything. After class, as the students rolled up their mats and gathered their belongings, several of them approached him with compliments and questions about Wednesday's session. Victoria was among the last to leave. "Marcus," she said, slinging her yoga bag over her shoulder, "I wanted to say how much I enjoyed the class. Jenny was wonderful, but you bring a different energy. It's refreshing." "Thank you," he replied, feeling oddly nervous. "I hope I can live up to everyone's expectations." "I'm sure you will." She paused at the door. "Actually, I'm curious. Do you live in the Maplewood area? You look familiar." Marcus's eyes widened slightly. "I do, actually. On Elm Street. I'm on Oak, just around the corner." Victoria smiled. "My son Kyle is friends with the Henderson's boy next door to you. I think I've seen you in passing." The pieces fell into place. Kyle Henderson. Marcus remembered him well. He was maybe 15 or 16, a good kid who sometimes helped Marcus with yard work for extra spending money. Which meant Victoria was Kyle's mother. Small world, Marcus managed, trying to process this information. Victoria was a mother, probably married, and living in his neighborhood. All excellent reasons to keep things professional. "Indeed it is," Victoria replied. "I'll see you Wednesday." Wednesday's class went even better than Monday's. Word had apparently spread about the new instructor, because there were 2 new faces in the group. Marcus felt more confident in his sequencing, and the students seemed to respond well to his teaching style. Victoria arrived exactly on time, as she had on Monday. She wore different clothes, black leggings and a fitted purple top that complemented her eyes, but carried herself with the same poised confidence. During the warm-up, Marcus caught her eye in the mirror and was surprised by the directness of her gaze. "Today we're going to work on some more challenging balance poses," Marcus announced. "Remember, it's not about perfection. It's about finding your edge and breathing through the difficulty." As they moved into tree pose, Marcus walked among the students, offering support where needed. When he reached Victoria, she was steady as a statue, her left foot pressed firmly against her right thigh, her hands in prayer position at her heart. "Try reaching your arms overhead," Marcus suggested. "See if you can maintain that same stability." Victoria slowly raised her arms, her gaze fixed on a point on the wall. For a moment, she was perfectly steady. Then, perhaps distracted by Marcus's proximity, she wobbled slightly. Without thinking, Marcus stepped closer and placed a gentle hand on her lower back to steady her. The contact was light and professional, but he felt the warmth of her skin through the thin fabric of her top, and he noticed how she seemed to lean almost imperceptibly into his touch. "Better?" he asked softly. "Much," she replied, and there was something in her voice that made him look at her more carefully. Her cheeks were slightly flushed, and not just from the exertion. Marcus realized he'd been standing there longer than necessary and quickly moved on to the next student. But for the rest of the class, he was acutely aware of Victoria's presence. The way she moved through the poses, the soft sound of her breathing, the occasional glance she sent his way. After class, as the students were leaving, Victoria approached him again. "Marcus, I hope this isn't too forward, but would you be interested in having coffee sometime? I'd love to hear more about your approach to yoga, and I think Kyle would enjoy meeting someone from the neighborhood who's so dedicated to fitness." The invitation was carefully worded, giving Marcus several ways to interpret it. A professional discussion about yoga. A neighborly coffee between people who lived on the same street. Or something else entirely. "I'd like that," Marcus replied, trying to keep his voice neutral. "When works for you?" "How about Saturday morning? There's a lovely cafe on Maple Avenue, The Grind." "Do you know it?" Marcus nodded. 10 o'clock? Perfect. Victoria smiled, and Marcus noticed how the expression transformed her face, making her look younger and more playful. "I'll see you then." Saturday morning found Marcus at the grind 15 minutes early, nursing a cup of black coffee and trying to calm his nerves. He'd changed clothes 3 times, finally settling on dark jeans and a gray button-down shirt, casual but put together. He wasn't sure why he was so nervous. It was just coffee between neighbors. Victoria arrived precisely at 10, looking effortlessly elegant in a cream-colored sweater and dark jeans. She'd left her hair down, and Marcus was struck again by how beautiful she was. "Sorry, I'm a few minutes late," she said, sliding into the chair across from him. Kyle needed a ride to his friend's house. "No problem. How old is Kyle?" 16. "He's a good kid, but like most teenagers, he thinks he knows everything." Victoria's eyes sparkled with maternal affection. "What about you? Any kids?" Marcus shook his head. "No, not yet. I've been pretty focused on building my career, getting established." "That's smart. I had Kyle when I was young, 22. Sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if I'd waited, had more time to figure myself out first." There was a wistfulness in her voice that made Marcus curious. "Do you regret having him young?" "Oh, no," Victoria said quickly. "Kyle is the best thing that ever happened to me. It's just, sometimes I feel like I skipped straight from being someone's daughter to being someone's mother, without ever getting to just be myself, you know?" Marcus nodded, sensing there was more to the story. "What about Kyle's father? Is he involved?" Victoria's expression grew more guarded. "David and I divorced 2 years ago. He remarried quickly, a woman closer to your age, actually. He sees Kyle every other weekend and pays his child support, but that's about the extent of his involvement." "I'm sorry. That must be difficult." "It was for a while. But honestly, it's better this way. David and we weren't good for each other. We got married because I was pregnant, not because we were in love." Victoria wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. "I'm 39 years old, and I feel like I'm finally figuring out who I am outside of being someone's wife or someone's mother." Marcus found himself drawn to her honesty, her willingness to be vulnerable with someone she barely knew. "And who is that? Who is Victoria when she's not being a mother?" Victoria smiled, a genuine expression of pleasure. "That's what I'm trying to figure out. I know she loves yoga and good coffee and books about history. She likes long walks and trying new restaurants and having conversations that go deeper than discussing carpool schedules. She sounds like someone worth getting to know." Their eyes met across the table, and Marcus felt something shift between them. This wasn't just neighborly coffee anymore, if it ever had been. There was an attraction here, a connection that went beyond the student-teacher relationship. "Tell me about you," Victoria said. "How did a personal trainer end up teaching yoga?" Marcus leaned back in his chair, considering how much to share. "I got into fitness because I was a pretty scrawny kid. Started lifting weights in high school, discovered I had a passion for helping other people achieve their goals. The yoga came later. I realized that strength without flexibility and mindfulness was incomplete." "That's a very mature perspective for someone your age." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "How old do you think I am?" 25? 26? 23? Victoria's eyes widened slightly. "Oh, I thought, you carry yourself like someone older." Marcus sensed her pulling back slightly, processing the implications of their age difference. 16 years. Not insurmountable, but significant. "Does that change things?" he asked directly. Victoria studied his face for a long moment. "I don't know. Should it? I don't think age matters as much as people make it out to. What matters is whether two people connect, whether they understand each other, whether they want the same things." "And what do you want, Marcus?" The question hung in the air between them. Marcus knew his answer could change everything, could keep them in safe, neighborly territory, or push them into something more complex and potentially dangerous. "Right now, I want to have more conversations like this. I want to get to know the woman who comes to yoga class 3 times a week and performs every pose with such focus and grace. I want to understand what makes her laugh, what she dreams about, what she's afraid of." Victoria's cheeks flushed slightly. "Marcus, I know it's complicated," he said. "I know there are reasons why this probably isn't a good idea. But I also know that I haven't felt this interested in getting to know someone in a very long time." Victoria was quiet for several moments, clearly wrestling with her thoughts. Finally, she spoke. "I need to be honest with you about something. I've been attracted to you since that first yoga class. The way you move, the way you speak, your confidence. It's been a long time since I felt that kind of immediate attraction to someone." Marcus felt his heart rate increase. But I'm also terrified. I'm finally at a place in my life where I feel stable, where Kyle and I have a good routine. Getting involved with someone, especially someone younger, someone in my neighborhood, it could complicate everything." Marcus reached across the table and gently took her hand. Her skin was soft and warm, and he felt her fingers tremble slightly at the contact. "What if we didn't think about it in terms of getting involved? What if we just took it one day at a time, one conversation at a time? No pressure, no expectations beyond enjoying each other's company." Victoria looked down at their joined hands. "You make it sound so simple." "Maybe it is simple. Maybe we're the ones making it complicated." She looked up at him then, and Marcus saw something shift in her expression, a decision being made. "Okay," she said quietly. "One day at a time." The next few weeks fell into a comfortable rhythm. Victoria continued to attend yoga class on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and Marcus began to look forward to those sessions with an intensity that surprised him. Their interactions during class remained professional, but there was an undercurrent of awareness that made even the most innocent adjustment or instruction feel charged with meaning. They began having coffee after Wednesday classes, and sometimes on Saturday mornings. Their conversations ranged from the philosophical discussions about the intersection of physical and mental wellness to the personal. Marcus learned that Victoria worked as a freelance marketing consultant, that she'd always wanted to travel to Italy, that she read voraciously and had strong opinions about everything from local politics to the best pizza in town. Victoria, in turn, discovered that Marcus was more thoughtful and mature than his age suggested. He'd grown up in a military family, moving frequently, which had taught him to adapt quickly and value genuine connections. He had plans to eventually open his own wellness center, combining personal training, yoga, and nutrition counseling. He was well-read and curious about the world in a way that reminded her of why she'd fallen in love with learning in college. Their friendship, if that's what it was, began to extend beyond coffee dates. When Victoria mentioned she was struggling to move some furniture, Marcus volunteered to help. When Marcus mentioned he'd never been to the farmer's market that Victoria frequented, she offered to show him around. These casual encounters were perhaps more dangerous than their formal coffee dates, because they felt so natural, so unguarded. Marcus found himself charmed by the way Victoria interacted with the vendors at the farmer's market, how she knew everyone's names and asked about their families. Victoria was surprised by Marcus's willingness to try new things: exotic fruits, artisanal cheeses, craft beer from a local brewery. It was during one of these farmers' market visits that they ran into Kyle. Marcus recognized him immediately. He was tall for his age, with his mother's blonde hair and intelligent eyes. He was with a group of friends, including Jason Henderson from Marcus's street. "Mom?" Kyle approached them, his expression curious. "What are you doing here?" "Just showing Marcus around," Victoria replied, her voice carefully casual. "Marcus, this is my son Kyle. Kyle, this is Marcus. He lives on Elm Street, and he's the new yoga instructor at my gym." Marcus extended his hand, and Kyle shook it with the kind of firm grip that suggested he'd been taught good manners. "Nice to meet you, man." Jason mentioned someone new had moved in near his place. "That's me," Marcus confirmed. "Your mom's been showing me all the best spots in the neighborhood." Kyle's eyes flicked between them, and Marcus could see the teenager processing the situation. There was nothing inappropriate about two neighbors spending time together, but Kyle was clearly wondering about the nature of their relationship. "Cool," Kyle said finally. "Well, I'm gonna catch up with my friends. See you at home, Mom." After he left, Victoria seemed more subdued. They finished their shopping in relative quiet, and when Marcus offered to carry her bags to her car, she accepted but didn't invite him in when they reached her house. "I should probably get Kyle some lunch," she said, not quite meeting Marcus's eyes. Marcus sensed her withdrawal and decided not to push. "Of course. I'll see you in class Monday." "Yes," Victoria replied, but her smile seemed forced. That evening, Marcus found himself restless, replaying the encounter with Kyle and Victoria's subsequent mood change. He understood her concern. Dating, or whatever they were doing, became more complicated when children were involved. But he also felt frustrated by the constant need to analyze and worry about their connection instead of simply enjoying it. His phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Victoria. "I'm sorry about earlier. I got in my head about Kyle and what this might look like. Can we talk?" Marcus called her immediately. "Hi." Victoria's voice was soft when she answered. "Hi. Are you okay?" "I think so. It's just, seeing you with Kyle, I realized how real this is becoming. And that scares me." Marcus sat down on his couch, choosing his words carefully. "What specifically scares you?" "That I'm being selfish. That I'm risking Kyle's stability for my own happiness. That people will judge me for dating someone 16 years younger. That you'll realize what you've gotten yourself into and disappear." "Victoria," Marcus said gently, "can I ask you something?" "Yes." "Are you happy? When we're together, when we're talking, when we're just being ourselves, are you happy?" Victoria was quiet for a moment. "Yes. Happier than I've been in years." "Then why is that something to be afraid of? Kyle seems like a great kid, and from what I can tell, you've raised him to be confident and secure. Don't you think he wants his mom to be happy?" "It's not that simple." "Maybe it is, though. Maybe we're overthinking this because we're so used to relationships being complicated and difficult. What if this one doesn't have to be?" Victoria sighed. "You're very wise for 23. And you're very beautiful for 39. That earned him a laugh. "Flatterer." "I'm serious, Victoria. Age is just a number. What matters is how we treat each other, how we make each other feel, whether we're good for each other. And I think we are." "I think so too," she admitted quietly. "So what do you want to do about it?" Another pause. Then, "Would you like to have dinner tomorrow night?" "Here, at my house." "Kyle's spending the weekend at his dad's." Marcus felt his pulse quicken. Dinner at her house felt like a significant step forward. "I'd love that." "Good. 7 o'clock. I'll be there." Marcus arrived at Victoria's house at exactly 7 o'clock, carrying a bottle of wine and a small bouquet of flowers from the farmer's market. He'd agonized over both choices, the wine because he wasn't sure what she liked, the flowers because they might seem too romantic. In the end, he'd decided that overthinking every gesture was exhausting and he should just follow his instincts. Victoria answered the door wearing a flowing navy dress that brought out her eyes. Her hair was down and slightly wavy, and she wore just enough makeup to enhance her natural beauty without looking overdone. "You look amazing," Marcus said, handing her the flowers. "Thank you," Victoria replied, her cheeks pinking slightly. These are lovely. Come in. Marcus had been curious about Victoria's home, and it didn't disappoint. The living room was warm and inviting, with comfortable furniture, bookshelves lining one wall, and family photos scattered throughout. It felt like a place where people actually lived, not a showpiece. "Can I give you the tour?" Victoria asked, and Marcus nodded. The house was modest but well appointed. Victoria had clearly put thought into creating a space that was both functional for raising a teenager and reflective of her own tastes. The kitchen was the heart of the home, with a large island and high-quality appliances. Family photos on the refrigerator showed Kyle at various ages, school pictures, sports teams, family vacations. "He's a good-looking kid," Marcus observed, studying a recent photo of Kyle in a soccer uniform. "He gets that from his father," Victoria replied, then paused. That sounded bitter. "I didn't mean it that way. David is a handsome man. He's just not a good husband." Marcus wondered about the details but didn't want to pry. Instead, he followed Victoria back to the kitchen, where something delicious was simmering on the stove. "What's for dinner?" "Nothing fancy, just pasta with homemade marinara sauce and a salad. I thought about trying to impress you with something elaborate, but then I decided I'd rather have a meal we can actually enjoy instead of me stressing about whether the soufflé is going to fall." Marcus laughed. "I'm impressed that you know how to make anything from scratch. My cooking skills are pretty limited. Maybe I can teach you sometime." The suggestion hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Teaching someone to cook was an intimate activity, requiring close proximity and patience. It suggested a future, repeated interactions, a level of comfort and trust. "I'd like that," Marcus said simply. They settled into an easy rhythm, Victoria finishing the dinner preparations while Marcus opened the wine and set the table. It felt domestic and natural, like they'd been doing this for years instead of navigating their first real date. Over dinner, their conversation flowed as easily as it had during their coffee dates, but with an added layer of intimacy. They were alone in Victoria's home, sharing a meal she'd prepared, taking their time without the pressure of public spaces or time constraints. Marcus learned that Victoria had majored in art history in college, that she'd originally planned to work in museums before life took her in a different direction. Victoria discovered that Marcus had briefly considered studying medicine before deciding he was more interested in preventive wellness than treating illness. "Do you ever regret not becoming a doctor?" Victoria asked as they cleared the dinner plates. "Sometimes. But I think I'm having more impact this way, helping people build sustainable habits instead of just treating problems after they arise." "That's very idealistic. Is that a bad thing?" Victoria smiled. "Not at all. It's refreshing." David was incredibly cynical. He believed everyone was out for themselves, that nothing really mattered except money and status. "It wore me down after a while." They moved to the living room with their wine, settling on the couch with a comfortable distance between them. Victoria had lit a few candles, and the soft light made everything feel more intimate. "Can I ask you something?" Marcus said, turning to face her. "Of course. What made you decide to get divorced? I know you said you and David weren't good for each other, but was there a specific moment when you knew it was over?" Victoria considered the question, swirling the wine in her glass. "There wasn't one dramatic moment. It was more like death by 1,000 small disappointments. He would promise to come to Kyle's games and then cancel at the last minute for work. He would make plans for us to spend time together and then invite colleagues to join us. He stopped seeing me as a person and started treating me like a component of his life, the wife appliance that managed the household and social obligations." Marcus felt a flash of anger at this unnamed man who had treated Victoria so carelessly. "That sounds lonely." It was. "I felt more alone when I was married to David than I do now as a single mother." Victoria looked at Marcus directly. "What about you? Have you ever been in love?" The question caught Marcus off guard. He'd dated, of course, but nothing serious, nothing that felt worth examining too closely. I thought I was in college. But looking back, I think it was more about the idea of being in love than actually loving that particular person. What do you think real love looks like? Marcus thought about this carefully. I think it's when someone becomes essential to your happiness, but not in a desperate way. When you want to be the best version of yourself because of how they see you. When you can be completely yourself, all your flaws and weirdness and bad habits, and they choose you anyway. Victoria's eyes had grown soft as he spoke. That's beautiful. Is that what you're looking for? I'm trying not to look for anything specific, Victoria replied. I spent so many years focused on what I thought I should want that I lost track of what I actually wanted. Now I'm trying to just be open to whatever happens. Marcus set down his wine glass and moved closer to her on the couch. And what's happening right now? Victoria's breathing had grown slightly shallow. Right now I'm thinking about how much I want you to kiss me, and how terrified I am of what that might mean. Marcus reached up and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. What if it doesn't have to mean anything more than that we want to kiss each other? Is it ever that simple? Let's find out. Marcus leaned forward slowly, giving Victoria every opportunity to change her mind or pull away. Instead, she met him halfway, her lips soft and warm against his. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, but as Victoria's hand came up to rest against his chest, it deepened. When they finally broke apart, Victoria rested her forehead against his. "Wow," she whispered. "Yeah," Marcus agreed. "Wow." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both processing what had just happened. "I should probably go," Marcus said finally, though every part of him wanted to stay. Victoria nodded, though she looked disappointed. "Probably." They stood together, and Marcus pulled her into his arms for another kiss, this one more confident, more passionate. Victoria melted against him, and Marcus felt the last of his reservations disappear. Whatever complications lay ahead, this felt right. At the door, Victoria placed her hand on his chest, stopping him. "Marcus." "Yes. Thank you for being patient with me. For understanding that this is complicated for me. Thank you for taking the chance anyway." Victoria smiled, the expression radiant. "I'll see you Monday in class." Looking forward to it. Marcus walked home through the quiet neighborhood streets, his mind replaying every moment of the evening. He felt energized and hopeful in a way he hadn't experienced before. Whatever happened next, he knew his life had just taken an important turn. Monday's yoga class had a different energy than usual. Victoria arrived right on time, as always, but Marcus noticed she seemed more relaxed, more open than before. During the warm-up, their eyes met in the mirror, and she gave him a small private smile that made his heart race. The other students seemed to sense something different as well. Elena made a comment about how peaceful the class felt, and Lisa mentioned that Marcus seemed particularly centered. Marcus wondered if his contentment was really that obvious. As they moved through the flow sequence, Marcus found himself paying extra attention to Victoria's practice. He'd always admired her form and focus, but now he noticed smaller details. The elegant line of her neck as she moved into upward-facing dog, the quiet confidence in her transitions, the way her breathing remained steady even during the most challenging poses. When it came time for adjustments, Marcus approached Victoria's mat with slightly more nervousness than usual. Physical touch, which had always been a natural part of yoga instruction, now felt charged with new meaning. Victoria was in triangle pose, her form nearly perfect but with room for a small refinement. Marcus placed one hand on her sacrum and gently guided her front hip back, creating a deeper opening through her side body. "How does that feel?" he asked softly. "Perfect," Victoria replied, and Marcus heard the double meaning in her voice. After class, as the other students filtered out, Victoria lingered to roll up her mat more slowly than necessary. "How was your weekend?" Marcus asked, helping her organize her props. "Quiet. Kyle came home yesterday full of stories about his time with his dad. Apparently, the new wife is trying very hard to be the fun stepmom." Victoria's tone was carefully neutral, but Marcus sensed some complicated emotions beneath the surface. "How do you feel about that?" Victoria considered this as they walked toward the exit. "Honestly, I'm grateful. Kyle needs positive adult influences in his life, and if she makes him happy, then I'm happy. It's just strange to be replaced so easily." "You haven't been replaced," Marcus said firmly. "No one could ever replace you in Kyle's life." Victoria gave him a grateful look. "Coffee Wednesday after class?" "Actually," Marcus said, feeling bold, "what if we tried something different? There's a new Thai restaurant on Pine Street that I've been wanting to try. Would you like to have dinner Wednesday instead?" Victoria's face lit up. "I'd love that. It's a date." The word hung in the air between them, their first explicit acknowledgement of what they were doing. Marcus felt a surge of happiness at Victoria's willingness to name it. "It's a date," he confirmed. Wednesday's dinner date marked a turning point in their relationship. Away from the gym, away from the neighborhood where they might run into Kyle or other familiar faces, they were able to relax completely into each other's company. Marcus discovered that Victoria had a playful side that rarely emerged in their more careful previous interactions. She laughed easily at his stories, teased him gently about his methodical approach to reading the menu, and surprised him by ordering the spiciest dish on the menu. "I love spicy food," she explained when Marcus raised an eyebrow at her choice. "David hated it, so I got out of the habit of eating it. This is one of my rediscoveries, figuring out what I actually like instead of what I thought I should like." Victoria, in turn, saw Marcus in a new light. Away from the role of instructor or the careful politeness of neighborhood coffee dates, he was more relaxed, more openly flirtatious. He asked her thoughtful questions about her work, her dreams for the future, her thoughts on everything from travel destinations to favorite books. "I have a confession," Marcus said as they shared a dessert of mango sticky rice. "I've been looking forward to Wednesdays more than any other day of the week." "Just Wednesdays?" Victoria asked with mock offense. "Mondays and Fridays too, obviously. But there's something special about Wednesdays, knowing I get to see you in class and then spend more time with you afterward." Victoria reached across the table and took his hand. "I've been looking forward to them too. More than I probably should." "What do you mean?" "I mean I catch myself thinking about you at random times during the day. Wondering what you're doing, what you're thinking about, whether you're thinking about me." Victoria's cheeks flushed slightly at the admission. "It's been a long time since I felt this way about someone." Marcus brought her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles softly. "I think about you constantly. During client sessions, at the grocery store, when I'm trying to fall asleep at night. You've become a very pleasant distraction." They lingered over dinner as long as possible, neither wanting the evening to end. Finally, as the restaurant began to empty around them, they reluctantly asked for the check. In the parking lot, Marcus walked Victoria to her car. The evening was warm and clear, with a full moon casting everything in silver light. "Thank you for dinner," Victoria said, leaning against her car door. "Thank you for saying yes." Marcus stepped closer, close enough that he could smell her perfume, something light and floral that he was beginning to associate with happiness. "Marcus." Victoria's voice was soft, uncertain. "Yes. I don't want this evening to end." Marcus felt his heart rate increase. "What are you suggesting?" "Kyle's at a friend's house until tomorrow afternoon. And I have a very nice bottle of wine at home that we never finished on Saturday." The invitation was clear, and Marcus felt desire surge through him. But he also felt the weight of responsibility. not just to Victoria, but to the relationship they were building. "Are you sure?" he asked. "We don't have to rush anything." Victoria stepped closer, eliminating the space between them. "I'm sure. I'm tired of being careful, tired of overthinking everything. I want to be with you tonight." Marcus cupped her face in his hands and kissed her deeply, pouring all of his want and affection into the contact. When they broke apart, both were breathless. "Follow me home?" Victoria asked. "Anywhere," Marcus replied. Victoria's house felt different at night, more intimate and inviting. She moved through the space, turning on lamps and lighting candles while Marcus opened the wine they'd mentioned. The domestic routine felt natural, like they'd done this countless times before. "I'm nervous," Victoria admitted as she accepted a glass of wine from Marcus. "It's been a long time since I've been with someone new." Marcus sat beside her on the couch, close enough to touch but giving her space to set the pace. "We don't have to do anything you're not ready for." "That's just it. I am ready. I want this, I want you. But it's also terrifying because it matters so much." Marcus set down his wine and turned to face her fully. "It matters to me too. More than I expected it to." Victoria's eyes searched his face. "What are we doing, Marcus?" "Really, I think we're falling for each other," he said honestly. "And I think that scares us both because it's not what either of us planned. I wasn't supposed to fall for my yoga instructor who's 16 years younger than me and lives in my neighborhood. And I wasn't supposed to fall for a beautiful, intelligent woman who makes me want to be better than I am." Victoria set her wine glass on the coffee table and moved closer to him. "But here we are." "Here we are," Marcus agreed, reaching up to touch her face. This time when they kissed, there was no hesitancy, no careful testing of boundaries. Victoria's hands fisted in Marcus's shirt, pulling him closer, while his fingers tangled in her hair. The kiss was deep and passionate, full of weeks of building tension and carefully controlled desire. When Victoria stood and extended her hand to him, Marcus didn't hesitate. He followed her down the hallway to her bedroom, his heart pounding with anticipation and nervousness. Victoria's bedroom was a reflection of her personality, sophisticated but warm, with soft lighting and luxurious fabrics. She turned to face him, and Marcus could see the vulnerability in her eyes despite her outward confidence. "I want you to know," she said softly, "that this isn't casual for me. I don't do this. I don't invite men into my home, into my bed, unless they mean something to me." Marcus stepped closer, his hands settling on her waist. "You mean something to me too, Victoria. More than I know how to put into words." Their lovemaking was tender and passionate, a perfect blend of the careful consideration they'd shown each other over the past weeks and the raw attraction that had been simmering between them. Marcus was attentive and generous, taking his time to learn what pleased Victoria, while she responded with a passion that had been suppressed for too long. Afterward, they lay entwined in Victoria's bed, her head on Marcus's chest, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "I should probably go," Marcus said reluctantly, though he made no move to leave. "Should you?" Victoria asked, her voice drowsy and content. "Kyle won't be home until tomorrow afternoon. And even if he came home early, he'd assume I had a friend over." "Stay." Victoria lifted her head to look at him. "Please." Marcus kissed her forehead. "Okay. But only because you said please." Victoria laughed and settled back against his chest. "You're going to spoil me, aren't you?" "That's the plan." They talked quietly in the darkness, sharing stories from their childhoods, dreams for the future, small intimacies that felt precious in the cocoon of Victoria's bedroom. Eventually, they drifted off to sleep, wrapped around each other like they'd been sleeping together for years. Marcus woke to the smell of coffee and bacon, and for a moment he was disoriented. Then he remembered where he was and smiled, stretching in Victoria's comfortable bed. Sunlight was streaming through the windows, and he could hear Victoria moving around in the kitchen. He found her at the stove, wearing a silk robe and humming softly to herself. Her hair was mussed from sleep, and she had the glow of a woman who'd been thoroughly loved. Marcus felt a surge of possessive satisfaction at the sight. "Good morning, beautiful," he said, wrapping his arms around her from behind and nuzzling her neck. "Good morning," Victoria replied, leaning back against him. "I hope you're hungry. I may have gone a little overboard with breakfast." Marcus looked at the spread she'd prepared: bacon, eggs, fresh fruit, toast, and what appeared to be homemade muffins. "Did you sleep at all?" "A little. I woke up early and couldn't get back to sleep, so I decided to cook. It's what I do when I'm happy. I cook." Victoria turned in his arms. "And I'm very happy this morning." "So am I," Marcus replied, kissing her softly. "Though I should probably head home soon and get cleaned up before Kyle gets back. He won't be home until 3. We have time." They ate breakfast on Victoria's patio, enjoying the warm morning air and each other's company. Marcus found himself studying Victoria's face in the morning light, memorizing the details: the way her eyes crinkled when she laughed, the small scar on her chin from a childhood accident, the elegant line of her collarbone above the silk of her robe. "What are you thinking about?" Victoria asked, noticing his intense gaze. "Just this. You. How perfect this morning feels." Victoria's expression grew serious. "It does feel perfect. Almost too perfect. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop." Marcus reached across the small table to take her hand. "What if there is no other shoe? What if we just allow ourselves to be happy? You make it sound so simple." "Maybe it is. Maybe we complicate things because we expect them to be complicated." Victoria smiled, but Marcus could see the worry in her eyes. He understood her fear. This was all new and fragile and precious, and the stakes felt impossibly high. "Victoria," he said gently, "what do you need from me to feel secure in this?" The question seemed to surprise her. "I don't know. No one's ever asked me that before." "Well, I'm asking. We're in this together, which means we need to take care of each other. What would help you feel more confident about us?" Victoria considered this, absently tracing patterns on the table with her finger. "Honesty, I suppose. And patience while I figure out how to navigate this. I haven't dated anyone since my divorce, and I certainly haven't dated anyone while managing a teenager and a career and all the other complications of my life." "You'll have both," Marcus promised. "And Victoria? I'm not going anywhere. This isn't a fling for me. It's not some exciting distraction. You're not a midlife crisis or a conquest. You're someone I care about deeply, someone I want to build something real with." Victoria's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. "How are you so wise at 23? Clean living and good genes," Marcus replied, earning a laugh. They spent the rest of the morning in comfortable domesticity, reading the paper together, taking a walk around Victoria's neighborhood, talking about everything and nothing. It felt like a preview of what their life together could be like, and Marcus found himself wanting more of these quiet, intimate moments. Around noon, Marcus reluctantly returned home to shower and change. He had a client session at 2, and Victoria needed to prepare for Kyle's return. They kissed goodbye at her front door like any normal couple, and Marcus marveled at how natural it felt. The next few weeks settled into a new rhythm. Marcus and Victoria were careful to maintain their professional relationship during yoga classes, but their personal relationship deepened rapidly. They had dinner together twice a week, coffee dates on weekends when Kyle was with his father, and long phone conversations on the evenings when they couldn't see each other. Marcus met Kyle properly when he stopped by one Saturday afternoon to help Victoria fix a leaky faucet. Kyle was polite but clearly sizing him up, asking casual questions about Marcus's work, his interests, his intentions toward his mother. "He likes you," Victoria told Marcus later, after Kyle had left for a friend's house. He told me you seem solid, and that you make me laugh more than I have in years. Smart kid, Marcus replied. He's protective of you, but not in a possessive way. That says good things about how you've raised him. Victoria's divorce had been finalized for over 2 years, so there was no legal complication to their relationship. But there were social complexities. The age difference raised eyebrows among some of Victoria's friends, and Marcus occasionally felt the weight of disapproving glances when they were out together. "Does it bother you?" Victoria asked one evening after a particularly pointed comment from another gym member about May-December romances. "The only thing that bothers me is when it bothers you," Marcus replied honestly. "I can't control what other people think, and I don't want to. What we have is real and good and makes us both happy. That's all that matters to me." Victoria's marketing business was thriving, and she began talking about expanding, possibly hiring an assistant. Marcus's client base was growing as well, and the gym manager had hinted about offering him additional classes or even a management position. "I have an idea," Victoria said one evening as they walked through the downtown area after dinner. "What would you think about teaching some private yoga sessions? I have several friends who've expressed interest in more personalized instruction." Marcus considered this. "That could be good for building my independent client base." "Are you thinking about people you know personally?" "A few, yes. And maybe some of my business contacts. There's a whole market for executive wellness programs, teaching stress management and physical wellness to corporate clients." The idea excited Marcus. He'd been thinking about ways to expand beyond the gym's group classes, and Victoria's connections and business acumen could be invaluable. "Would you want to partner with me on this?" he asked. "Handle the business side while I focus on the instruction?" Victoria's face lit up. "Really? You'd want to work together? I can't think of anyone I'd rather work with." They spent the rest of the evening planning, their excitement building as they discussed possibilities. A business partnership would be another step in deepening their relationship, another way of building a shared future. 3 months into their relationship, Marcus and Victoria had found their rhythm. Kyle had fully accepted Marcus's presence in their lives, even seeking him out for advice about school and soccer. Marcus had become a regular fixture at family dinners and weekend activities, and Victoria had begun attending some of Marcus's personal training sessions to better understand his work. Their physical relationship had evolved as well. They'd moved past the initial intensity of new attraction into something deeper and more satisfying, a connection that was both passionate and comfortable, exciting and secure. One evening, as they were cleaning up after dinner at Victoria's house, Kyle made an announcement that surprised them both. "I've been thinking," he said, loading dishes into the dishwasher with the efficiency of a teenager who'd been assigned chores since he was small, "and I think you guys should move in together." Marcus nearly dropped the plate he was holding, while Victoria stared at her son in surprise. "Kyle," Victoria began. "Hear me out," Kyle continued, seemingly unaware of the bombshell he'd just dropped. "Marcus is here most of the time anyway. He helps with groceries and cooking and fixing stuff around the house. He comes to my games and helps me with homework. He's practically living here already, except he still keeps all his stuff at his place and has to go back and forth all the time." Marcus looked at Victoria, trying to read her expression. They'd been happy with their current arrangement, spending most nights together but maintaining their separate spaces. Moving in together would be a significant step, one they hadn't discussed. "Besides," Kyle added, warming to his theme, "if you guys are going to get married eventually anyway, you might as well start practicing living together now." "Kyle." Victoria's face had gone bright red. "What?" "It's obvious you're crazy about each other. And Marcus is way better than Dad ever was. He actually listens when you talk, and he doesn't check his phone during dinner, and he knows how to make you laugh when you're stressed about work." Marcus felt his heart swell at Kyle's easy acceptance of their relationship, even as he wondered how Victoria felt about her 16-year-old son making assumptions about marriage. "Okay," Victoria said, taking a deep breath, "that's enough relationship counseling from the peanut gallery. Kyle, why don't you finish loading the dishwasher and then start your homework?" "I'm just saying," Kyle replied with a grin, clearly enjoying his parents' discomfort. "You guys are being kind of stupid about this. But hey, it's your lives." After Kyle disappeared upstairs, Victoria and Marcus stood in the kitchen in slightly awkward silence. "Well," Victoria said finally, "that was unexpected." "He's not wrong, though," Marcus replied carefully. "I am here most of the time, and it would be more practical." "Is that the only reason you'd want to live together?" "Practicality." Marcus moved closer to her, taking her hands in his. "No. I'd want to live together because I love falling asleep next to you and waking up with you. Because I love being part of your daily routine, part of your family. Because I can't imagine wanting to be anywhere else." Victoria's expression softened. "Marcus." "I love you, Victoria. I know we haven't said that to each other yet, but I do. I love your intelligence and your strength and the way you make me want to be better. I love how you are with Kyle, how you've built this beautiful life for the two of you. I love that you took a chance on us despite all the reasons it seemed complicated." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "I love you too. So much that it sometimes scares me." Marcus pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "So what do you think? Should we listen to Kyle's advice?" Victoria laughed against his chest. "I think," she said, pulling back to look at him, "that my 16-year-old son is smarter than both of us. Yes, I want you to move in. I want us to build a life together." Marcus kissed her deeply, tasting the salt of her happy tears. When they broke apart, Kyle's voice drifted down from upstairs. "Finally. I was starting to think I was going to have to give you guys a PowerPoint presentation." Victoria and Marcus looked at each other and burst into laughter. Their life together was going to be anything but conventional, but it was going to be theirs. 6 months later, Marcus and Victoria were planning their wedding. It would be a small ceremony in Victoria's backyard, with Kyle serving as Marcus's best man and Victoria's sister as her maid of honor. Their yoga classes had evolved into a thriving private instruction business, with Victoria handling the marketing and scheduling while Marcus focused on teaching. The age difference that had once seemed so significant had faded into irrelevance. What mattered was how they cared for each other, how they'd built a family together, how they supported each other's dreams and ambitions. On their wedding day, as Marcus stood in the garden where they'd shared so many quiet mornings, watching Victoria walk toward him in a simple but elegant dress, he reflected on how unexpected love could be. He'd walked into a yoga class thinking he was just taking on a new professional challenge, and instead had found his life partner. Victoria, radiant with happiness, met his eyes as she approached. In her face, he saw his future. More quiet mornings and family dinners, business plans and travel adventures, challenges weathered together and joys shared. Kyle, standing beside Marcus in his first real suit, grinned widely as his mother reached the makeshift altar. "You clean up pretty good, Mom," he whispered, earning laughter from the small gathering of family and friends. "Dearly beloved," the officiant began, but Marcus was only half listening. His attention was focused on Victoria, on the promise of their life together, on the unexpected gift of finding love when and where he least expected it. As they exchanged vows, promises of partnership and passion, of supporting each other's dreams and building a family together, Marcus thought about the first night he'd taught yoga class, how nervous he'd been about meeting the expectations of a new group of students. He'd never imagined that in trying to meet their expectations, he'd exceed his own wildest dreams. "You may kiss the bride," the officiant announced, and Marcus didn't need to be told twice. As he kissed his new wife, surrounded by the people they loved most, Marcus felt the deep satisfaction of a life lived with intention and openness to possibility. Sometimes the best things in life came disguised as professional obligations, and sometimes the greatest adventures began with a simple willingness to say yes to something new. Kyle cheered loudly as they broke apart, and Victoria laughed, her face glowing with happiness. This was their beginning, Marcus realized. Not the end of their story, but the start of their greatest adventure yet. The yoga instructor had found far more than he'd bargained for in that studio full of beautiful women. He'd found his home.